Hey, what's up, y'all? My name is Millennial Smark, and I'm back at it again with another video. So, before I even talk about this, just so everybody's caught up on the context as far as what I'm discussing right now, I'm okay with you pressing the video or pressing pause on the video for a minute. Do me a favor, don't even do anything yet. Just go into the description box, alright? It's a short video. It's not really that long. It's a link to someone's Twitter page, pretty much outlining why I'm talking about this video. It's, if you didn't watch Collision last night, which I didn't, I just so happened to scroll through Twitter and I seen this video. Chris Jericho had a match with Dax Harwood, and the finish is one of the most atrocious finishes, one of the most botched, terrible finishes you will ever see in professional wrestling. And not even botch in the sense that like they weren't communicating together. It's just botch because Jericho looks like a total fucking mess out there. He looks like a mess from the way he actually did the title shot, belt shot maneuver, because he was, I don't know if you guys ever seen this match with Jericho and Benoit at Backlash back in 2000 for the Intercontinental Championship. They tried to do that finish. Ironically enough, Jericho did the move, which is funny because it's like, dude, you can't even do belt shots anymore, bro. You can't even just simply do the same finish that you did not even 25 years ago. You can't even do that properly anymore. All you had to do was hold up a belt. All you had to do was actually put mustard behind your belt shot. All you had to do. And the funny thing is too, maybe I always thought to myself, maybe it was one of those deals where it's like Jericho always had this reputation for being a little bit stiff, being a little bit snug, right? That's why I always thought it came from. But I don't know, maybe Jericho took it to heart, and now that he's getting older, he's now trying to be safe, but now he's going Hulk Hogan levels of safe as far as not even touching people with the championship belt. But it's a lot worse, you know, the miscommunication, the timing, how slow Jericho is. You got to watch the video again. If you didn't watch, just watch it. You'll see what I mean as far as context is considered. And it's pathetic. And the more and more I see Jericho on television, makes me sad. It honestly makes me sad. I made this, and it's funny, I made this video 3 years ago. Let me say this one more time. 3 years ago, where I was asking, begging, pleading for people to go on social media and start a hashtag Chris Jericho please retire. I made that whole video like 3 years ago, 2020, and I don't think it was 2022. It was probably like late 2021 when I made this video. It is now 3 years later, almost 4. And Jericho is still wrestling. As a matter of fact, I know it was in 2021 actually, because I think that's when he had the match and he jobbed to Action Andretti when he first debuted. I think that's when I made the please retire video, right? That was like what, late 2021, maybe early 2022 at the latest. It's pathetic. It's pathetic to see a living legend like Chris Jericho, a guy who beat Stone Cold Steve Austin and The Rock on the same night to earn both the WCW World Championship and the WWE World Championship on his first run. Now, granted, he had the WCW World Heavyweight Championship prior to the WWE title, but his first his first sanctioned World Championship in the WWE, I mean, he won it alongside of the World Heavyweight Championship. He's a record-breaking Intercontinental Champion, a former European Champion, a former United States Champion. If you want to continue the lineage from WCW, technically speaking, a former Cruiserweight Champion, a former Tag Team Champion, whether you're talking about the Raw Tag Team belts, the SmackDown Tag Team belts, hell, even the Undisputed Tag Team belts, hell, even the WCW World Tag Team Championship belts, hell, even the WWF World Tag Team Championship belts. There is literally nothing that Jericho has not won in WWE. Every championship belt that you could think of outside of the women's championship belt, hell, he even probably won that championship and it's skipping my brain right now. Jericho has won. He has been in literally every match stipulation you can think of, outside of maybe an Iron Man match. And even then, not really, but sort of kind of, because he was in a 2 out of 3 falls match. He's been in those. Benoit, SummerSlam 2000. Check that match out too. Fucking brilliant. There is nothing that Jericho has not done in professional wrestling. He is literally the architect, the godfather of indie wrestling. While territories were dying, Jericho, along with Benoit, along with Malenko, along with Ray Ray, along with all those guys, Hoovy, Psychosis, all those guys, Art Barr, rest in peace, all them boys, bruh. All of them. X-Pac even, when he was 1, 2, 3 kid, when he was wrestling in Japan. These guys were the architects for the indie style of professional wrestling that you currently see right now. He is a living legend, and I'm glazing him like this because, as you guys may know, if you're new to the channel, Chris Jericho is my favorite wrestler of all time. Chris Jericho is the reason why I'm even talking to you guys right now. I will go as far as to say, outside of my family members, I'm not going to say that I worship celebrities or anything like that, but Jericho is as close to a hero and an influence that I could see within a celebrity than anybody that I've ever seen on my television. I admire the dog shit out of Chris Jericho, not just from a wrestling standpoint, but also all his contributions to, well, actually, ignore that for a second, just his work ethic on top of that. You know, one may even argue, although I'm not a big fan of Fozzy, he's one of the reasons why I decided to pick up a guitar, and I've been playing for almost 20 years now. He is a huge influence on me. To see him go out like this is so sad, because Chris Jericho, and it's crazy because you have people nowadays who got into wrestling, say, I want to say circa 2012, circa 2011, maybe 2010, about 15 years now. And they've never really witnessed Jericho in his prime. They've never really gotten Jericho when he was the Ayatollah of rock and roller. You know what I mean? They never got the king of the world, baby. They never got Y2J, bro. They have to witness this shell of a former human being walk around cosplaying as Chris Jericho. And it really does eat at me. It pisses me off. It hurts me. You know, when I was a kid, and maybe some of you guys do the same thing too. When I was a kid, I used to play wrestling games like, say, WCW Thunder, for an example. I know I did that in particular back in the 90s. Even games like SmackDown 1, SmackDown 2, Know Your Role, where like I would be playing as, say, a separate character, right? Let's just say, for an example, Thunder, I decided to play as Sting, right? Or say SmackDown 1, I decided to play as, I don't know, let's just say Jeff Hardy, right? Let's just say SmackDown 2, I decided to play as Benoit or Angle or something like that. If I were to go up against Chris Jericho, who I typically use during season mode, if I were to go up a Chris Jericho AI, I would lose on purpose because I didn't feel right beating Jericho. Yes, that's how fucking psychotic of a fan I was growing up as a kid. And you see Jericho's career progress throughout the years. Obviously, his work never really, it was never bad. Like, Jericho's work in the 90s was, again, he was one of the best wrestlers in the world. Because it wasn't just, Jericho is one of those people where it's like, he can wrestle his ass off. He's innovative. You know, he's supreme. I don't have to talk up Jericho in the 90s. We all know that he's one of the best wrestlers in ring wise of all time when it comes to his 90s work, right? Obviously, his AAA stuff, his CMLL stuff, his wrestling and romance stuff when he was in the Super J Cup back in 95 and 96, all that stuff. When obviously, you know, Corazon de Leon, all that stuff, right? He was one of the people that understood the business past just the aspect of just the wrestling. Jericho knew how good he was, but he knew that just the wrestling in itself wasn't going to take him to the top. What Jericho understood is what I bitch about all the time in regards to the AEW wrestlers. When I talk about, yeah, you guys are good. Yeah, you guys can go out there and have the fun matches, but you guys have little personality, which never resonates with whatever story you do because it makes it hard to relate to you. Jericho was one of the few people, probably one of the only people at the time. Later, Eddie started to get it, you know what I mean? But Jericho initially was one of the only people at the time that understood the aspect of, I can wrestle, but also I need something to stand out. I need to work on my microphone skills. Let me relate to the people with comedy. Let me, range. Let me go out there and just spread myself, right? Pause. No Diddy. He understood all that, and it brought him to the promised land in WWE, where almost all your favorites that are currently going straight to Hall of Famers, Jericho has wrestled. He has feuded with. He has done something with. The Austins, the Rocks, the Angles. You know what I mean? The Cenas, the Batistas, the Edges, the Ortons. All those guys he has worked with. The only person who I can think of from a legendary standpoint that he's probably never extensively worked with is maybe Brock Lesnar. And even he and him have a little bit of history, more legitimate than, kayfabe. But nevertheless, though, my point being is Jericho has done it all. And when he came to AEW, in 2018, 2019, when the company was first starting up, when he first signed with them, I understood why he came to AEW, right? I didn't like that he was leaving WWE. I thought that he should have stayed with WWE. I thought to myself that is where you broke out into the mainstream, arguably WCW, but when he really made a name for himself was in WWE, obviously, right? His feud with Triple H in 2000 is what made him stand out. When he came to AEW, I understood. You're the biggest wrestler in that company from a name perspective, right? Still, to this very day, there's no name bigger than Chris Jericho currently at the moment on the entire roster. There's no name that resonates more with casuals currently at the moment than Chris Jericho. Arguably, ironically enough, the only person who rivals Jericho is probably Jim Ross. Two people who are way past their prime. Two people who I have a high deal of respect for. People who have made my childhood. Ironically enough, Jim Ross is probably the second biggest name, and he's also washed. When Jericho came to AEW, I said to myself, I get it. I understand. This company needs a big name to make it stand out more, right? It needs a big get from WWE to make them understand, to make the fans understand that they're not playing. And they did it initially. They did it. The only problem is with Jericho, and I've come to understand this as decades started to go on. You hear backstage stories and all this other kind of stuff as far as what Jericho wanted to do. From a creative aspect, I can understand what Jericho tries to get around doing. He has a Vince Russo complex about him where it's like Jericho, he wants to do crazy shit, and when it hits, it really fucking hits. For some more contemporary fans, obviously you think of him and Kevin Owens, the Festival of Friendship stuff. That's probably the most latest thing that he's done as far as being super duper crazy, out of this world. On paper it looks fucking retarded, but when it actually plays out, it is fucking fantastic. The Festival of Friendship is probably the thing that stands out the most for more recent fans. And when it doesn't hit, it doesn't hit. Like almost everything he's fucking done in AEW. Because it's dog shit. And you have nobody in place to tell Jericho, hey, let's reel it in, buddy. Let's reel it in. Even when Triple H told him to reel it in for the Festival of Friendship, when they almost had that fight, they got into an argument backstage because Triple H didn't want to give the green light for Jericho to do all this kind of stuff with the Festival of Friendship shit, and Jericho went to Vince to get a green light for it. Even the stuff that looked ridiculous, Triple H made sure that Jericho couldn't do it, and Jericho was so passionate about it, he knew it was going to get over, that he went over Triple H's head and talked to Vince. If Jericho knows that the most minimalistic shit is probably going to get over in his mind, but he has a just an inkling that it might not do well on television, even if he's going to go for it, someone's going to reel him in and he's not going to fight for it because he knows in the back of his mind there's a good shot that maybe they're right. The Festival of Friendship stuff was a little bit different because Jericho knew what it was trying to do. He knew where it was going. He knew the significance of the clipboard, and he knew that that right there was the plot device that everybody was going to attach to that could have got him over and got the whole angle over. He understood that. And that's how he was able to fantasize it and get it on paper and get it on television, right? You look at AEW, the Inner Circle shit. And look, I'll give credit where credit is due. Jericho is one of those cats where it's like he's way too giving sometimes. You know what I mean? Like Jericho wants so badly to put over people. It's almost like that whole little that thing where like you have a dad who's absent in your life and he's not doing anything for you and he's a piece of shit, and you as a child realize that, and you said to yourself, when you become a dad, you're going to be the complete opposite of what your dad was to you, and you kind of overdo it a little bit because you give your child way too much freedom. You're a little bit too into their life, which is fine when they're growing up, but when they start hitting those teenage years, you're a little bit too encapsulating them inside your clutches. You know what I mean? Or maybe even a mom, for an example, as far as, you know, maybe being, I don't know, mentally or maybe even physically abused, and she wants to hold her son or daughter captive, for an example, right? You overdo it. I feel like Jericho's overdoing it. I feel like Jericho being held down by so many people throughout the decades, and him now being in the position where those guys who were holding him back, him now being in that position, he wants to give and give and give and give and give. And there's so much you can give before you ruin your own name. And Jericho is now at the point where he's ruined his own name. Not to mention, he's making so much money being one of the stalwarts of AEW. He is still a name. You know the reason why Tony Khan, because people are like, why won't Tony Khan do something to Jericho as far as sitting him out? I think he is trying to do that in his own way, but at the same time, even Tony recognizes Jericho is still one of the biggest names in professional wrestling. You know, there is no person who's below the age of 50 who doesn't know who Chris Jericho is. And the thing is, with Jericho, you put him on a contract, you put his name on something, it's most likely to get a deal settled compared to anybody else on your roster. You know what I mean? So I understand the premise, but like, damn it, bro. If Jericho is just going to go out there and phone it in so much, I get it. He's making a shit ton of money. You know, he's in an elder statesman position right now. But dude, and it's not like he can't do it. It's like, sometimes I feel like Jericho, I don't know, like when he's not in a position of leading the ship, when he's not in a position where he's the lead person in a role, he just phones everything in, bro. He really does. Look at him right now, man. Like, what, 2-3 years ago, he got himself into shape. He was lean, abs. You can fucking pour water down and it looks like a damn Nile River or whatever. You know, like Jericho looked incredibly in shape. He looked like the old Jericho circa 2001. Yeah, he's not going to move the same, which is crazy because Jericho's never really been injured for real. I mean, I know he did that shooting star press stuff back in Smoky Mountain Wrestling and he fucked up his elbow or his shoulder or whatever, or his arm injury. I think he broke his arm. But that's like the worst injury Jericho has ever had. And that was 30 years ago. 30 years ago. From that point on, Jericho has never had a significant injury. Maybe a concussion here and there, but never something that broke bones. Jericho has never missed extensive time on either roster, WCW or WWE, unless he himself decided to take a hiatus. Never was there an injury to take Jericho out. That's why he was always consistently relied on. So it's not that, it's just Jericho's getting old, man. Jericho's getting old. Jericho this year will be 55 years old. You know, he is older than Ric Flair when Ric Flair came back to WWE in 2002. You guys realize that? Actually, he's older than him by a significant amount, like 3 or 4 years. I think Flair came back to WWE when he was 52. They were doing angles for retirements and shit like that with Ric Flair when Flair was like in his mid 40s. Jericho is like almost a full decade older than Ric Flair when they were calling him a dinosaur. Actually, he is like a full decade older than most of the WCW wrestlers. Probably even 15 years older than some of the WCW wrestlers when they were calling them dinosaurs in WWE. It's just sad, bruh. His body type is nowhere near as cut as he used to be. He is nowhere near the wrestler that he used to be. His gimmicks are shit. The Inner Circle stuff was a complete failure. You put together a bunch of people that literally did not mesh well with you at all. Then you went to the next thing with the Jericho Appreciation Society, and it was straight fucking trash. The same concept. Now you're doing the learning tree stuff, and it's just lame, bruh. It's lame. You show up on television, and there was a time in 2000 where I would stand up and I would spread my arms like Jericho. I would do the same tunts as Jericho. I would mimic Jericho. All this other kind of stuff. And now I see him on my television, and I fucking groan. Oh my God, I groan when I see Jericho now. There's no way you can see. There's no way you could tell 9-year-old me, 10-year-old me back in the 90s, back in the early 2000s, that there would be a point in time where you will grow tired of Jericho. I would have thought you were speaking blasphemy. Now we're like 25 years, 26, 27 years later, and we're actually at that point. We're actually at that point. And it's not even me just suggesting this. It's the fact that Jericho is not the same. He's phoning everything in. He doesn't have the same body type. He's not the same wrestler. He's not the same character. He is now worse than the dinosaurs that he used to go after in WCW, saying that held him back. Those who held him back, he's now become them, much worse and much older. It is sad. It is pathetic. I just wish he will go away, not because I don't like Jericho. I will always be a diehard Jerichoholic. That will always be ingrained in me till the day I die. No matter what happened with Jericho, he will always be my favorite wrestler of all time. You can't erase the past. The past is too significant with me. That will never go away. But at the same time, right now, just go away, bruh. Do your legacy a favor. Do your history a favor. Do your fans a favor. You're not the old Jericho. You will never be the old Jericho. It is impossible to be the old Jericho because the Jericho that I loved was in his mid-20s, and this Jericho is 30 years older. It's over. Your matches are trash. You are wrestling on the undercard of the second brand that no one gives a shit about. You're not world championship material. Your accolades currently right now is what you're living off of. You're living off of the name of Chris Jericho. Just go be a teacher, be a trainer. There's so many things that you can do to contribute to the business. And I get it. Maybe it won't be the same type of money for you to, buy a bunch of alcohol and get another gut belly. But goddamn it, damn, bro, man, I wish we can start a GoFundMe or something like that and give Jericho $55 million so he can be set for life, just so he can have a reason to get the fuck out of the goddamn ring, get the fuck off of television if it has nothing to do with just praising how awesome his legacy is. This is so pathetic. Watching him do this to his career is so fucking pathetic and it's heartbreaking. Let me hear your thoughts down in the comment section below. I just felt like I had to talk about this. This is almost like an extension of the original retirement video I did 3 years ago, but now much worse because more shit has happened between now and then. Man, I'm finna go watch Kane versus Chris Jericho, Armageddon 2000, last man standing match, just to erase all this bullshit out of my mind. I gotta go watch some Jericho promos circa 2003 with Shawn Michaels, or maybe even 2008 with Shawn Michaels, just to remind myself how good he is, because I can't end the day with thinking about Jericho this way. This is so fucking sad, man. This is so fucking sad. As always, my name is Devontae, aka Millennial Smark, and I'll be catching you guys later. Deuces. P.I.S. Jericho, please, for the love of God, just retire, bro. Just retire.